me share my screen. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to start with a use case diagram. What I did is I took the website that I built for CIT 336 and kind of used that as my example. And so the website that I built is basically what I call a volunteer hub, and the main idea is that organizations could use the website to enter service opportunities that their organization offers, and individuals could come and search for service opportunities that they would like to help with, and then they could volunteer for the ones that they want to. So it's basically a way to hook up organizations that have service needs with individuals who want to provide service. And so this use case diagram is kind of attempting to show that. And I don't know 100% that it's correct, because I haven't gone into great depth on the use case diagram piece yet either. But this is kind of what I think it needs to be. So for the use case document that I'm going to walk through today, I'm going to focus on this register organization use case, right? So the use case is about a representative from an organization registering their organization that essentially they have to do before they can then go in and enter or maintain service opportunities for their organization. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So then I'm going to switch to my PowerPoint here. Where did it go? Okay. So as I mentioned, the use case document that I'm going, what is this thing doing? Like, I don't see, there we go. It's going to be about that process, but I wanted to spend a little bit of time just talking about, well, what is a use case really? Why do we use it? You know, a use case defines what needs to happen upon a particular action in order for that action to be completed successfully. Why do we use them? It's important to use a use case because it outlines everything that is needed for a particular process to succeed, and it also outlines all the people that are involved with it. And really, you know, the document is meant to provide context for designers, developers, testers, etc., and really feeds into the system level testing that we kind of covered last week. So, you know, if you're preparing for a system level test, really what you want to do is gather up all of your use cases, and then that kind of gives you the population of functions that you need to include in your system level test. Does that make sense to folks?
Yeah. It's actually pretty easy to create that system level test once you've started doing these use cases.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so how do I create a use case document? I think for me that was my biggest question going into this. And I found that there's no single format for use cases. There's probably as many as you can dream up. There's many different types and formats. You know, which one you use really depends on the nature of your requirements and what seems best to you. You know, the material that I read did suggest that really the one that is right is the one that serves your purpose best. And it also suggested, though, that, you know, once you've kind of done some experimentation and figured out what you think works best for you, you should pick that format and then stick with it. And what they meant by that is, you wouldn't want to be in an organization where, Joe over here uses this format for his use cases, and Jill over here uses a different format for her use cases, right? As an organization, you want a single format, so that it's cohesive, no matter who creates it. The most important thing that I got out of the reading was that you should ensure that the use case is easily understandable. That's really the key thing. There are common sections. As I looked at all kinds of different formats of a use case, there's some common sections. Usually the use case is going to have a name and a summary that sort of describes what it is. And then the things that we talked about with the use case diagram. So you're going to have actors, for example. You're going to have preconditions. You're going to kind of show the flow, the level, any triggers, stakeholders. So those kinds of things would potentially be documented in a use case. So actors, this is just sort of a rehash of what Ryan already talked about, but basically you have two types. You have the primary actor and the secondary actor. The primary actor is the person who's responsible for the event for which the use case exists. Secondary actors are, a person or group of people or an object that is needed to complete the process successfully. Preconditions. Preconditions are conditions that need to be met to ensure that the use case can be fulfilled. And if these conditions are not met, then the case can't run its course. Right. So kind of back to what Ryan talked about, a login would be kind of maybe potentially a precondition. Right. So I've got this function that I'm trying to do, but if I'm not logged in, I can't do it. So in that case, being logged into the website is a precondition. Flow, you need to define the flow of the process that starts when a use case is started, and it needs to detail how the communication will flow, who the information will be displayed to, what they need to do, and where the primary actor will end up. And you could have basically what they call the basic flow. So that's sort of what I would describe as the happy path that Brother Tuckett has talked about. It's the best case scenario of what should happen if all the conditions are met. And then there might be alternate routes that can happen, to get through that process, right? And then also exceptions that dictate what happens if a failure does occur in the flow somewhere. So what is a level? Basically, what I got from this is that a level explains the urgency which it needs to be dealt with. So the level can depend on the type of use case. And so for an example, I'm thinking about a situation where I'm handling customer communications, right? A normal company might classify most consumer complaints as a high level, while general feedback might be classified as being on a lower level. And so the idea with levels is just being able to ensure that whoever reads the use case realizes its importance to ensure that they give it the right amount of attention. And again, not every use case format is going to have a level, right? So this is just giving you an idea of things that you might include in a use case document. A trigger simply defines the exact action which results in the use case. So again, the example being a user support system, a ticketing system. The trigger is when the customer clicks the button on the website to generate a support ticket. And that's what starts the use case within the support system. Stakeholders are simply the people that are going to be affected by the use case. And again, I've saw plenty of formats that didn't include stakeholders. I've seen them with stakeholders included. The idea behind it is that, you know, the information that I read basically said, look, there's no way to write a good process if you don't know who's going to be affected by it. And only when you know all the people involved will you be able to ensure that your design does everything that it needs to do. So use case diagrams that Ryan already covered. Basically, the information that I read suggested that a use case document should always be based off of a use case diagram. You know, there was some thought that you could start with the documents first and then build your diagram based off the documents that you create. To me, that's sort of not the normal path. That's kind of backwards. But the idea with the diagrams is that most people are much better at visual cues than they are at reading. And so when you have both the document and the use case diagrams, it really makes it much more clear. So for references, I didn't have too many really. The use case document example that I put together comes from Doing More with Java, our textbook. And then there was some good information by IBM out on this site that I've got here. And then also, and I think I posted this in the developer forum, this template lab. So this kind of explains all those common sections of a use case. And it also includes, like, I think there was over 40 different examples of different use case formats that you could peruse. With that, I wanted to then, and unfortunately it doesn't look like I have that up. Give me just a second. I'm going to bring up, I did create an example document that we could walk through. So again, this comes from my website, and the use case that we're looking at is an organization registering, right? So the function is register an organization. I provide just a brief summary of what that's about. You know, version is 1.0. Preconditions: the user has to have navigated their browser to the website and basically be on the home page of the website. And the trigger is when they click on the website in this area called Register Organization. And then I document sort of the main success scenario. So when they click on that area, I want them to be able to enter user information, organization information, and some contact information. And then they click a register button that essentially validates and then records that information. And if it's successful, then they land on this page that says, "Thank you for registering." Okay. The alternative success scenarios are that in addition to those steps outlined in the main success scenario, I want this thing called a reset button, which clears the input fields so that they can start over if they want to. And there's one optional field on the form where they can enter a contact phone number if they want to. They don't have to, but if they want to, they can. And then post conditions would be, again, just that the user is redirected to that thank you page. And from there, they could click the opportunities button and start entering service opportunities for their organization if they want to. I then document all the business rules, which basically talks about, okay, here's all the fields that need to be required on that form, including a password. As they register their organization, they're actually really creating a login for the organization as well. And so there's some rules around what password is acceptable. The contact phone number, as I said, is optional. And then the register button, basically validates that form and passes the information into the database. And then the reset button clears the form fields. So again, it just sort of spells out, here's all the logic that needs to happen around that function. And then just some notes, who the author of the document was and when it was authored. So that's based on, like I said, that's the template that the textbook had. So to finish up, I just wanted to give you kind of a visual of what really that use case is describing. So this is the home page of my website here. And really what that's meant to document then is this function here. So the user comes to the home page, they click register organization, they fill in all of these fields. The fields are then validated. They click the register button, the fields are validated, and if everything is valid, then it adds that to the database and navigates them to a page that says, thank you for registering. And at the bottom of that page, there would be a button that allows them to start entering service opportunities. So what questions do you have?
That was a good example.
It was really good. So it is a black box testing, right? So the tester really doesn't know what's going on behind the scenes.
The tester would not, but the use case document, kind of spells out everything that needs to happen, especially around the business rules, right? And so, again, this document really is meant to, you could pass this to the person who's going to develop the website and say, this is what I want you to build, right? And it contains everything that they would need and gives them some context around, okay, so who are these actors, and who are the parties involved, and what does the page need to do, all of that kind of stuff. It could be used, you could give it to testers if you wanted to do more of a white box test with the users, or you just use it in your system level testing. You wouldn't have all of this detail in the system level test, right? But it kind of tells you what that system level test needs to look like.
Makes sense.
Thank you. Seeing an example was really useful. Really helps us see like what's going to be.
It's almost like you could create the diagram and also the document almost at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I did too.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back at the diagram, then I'd have to go on and create a document for each one of these other use cases. So we just focused on just the one from the diagram.
Right. Anybody have any other questions?
I have a question, but it's kind of not this topic. It's off topic.